NFL Richard Janvrin featured columnist September 18, 2017 Chris Grath in Getty Images. Week 2 of the NFL season started off in the worst way possible. As viewers, we were tasked with watching the Texans at Bengals. And I don't use the word tasked lightly. There were 7 teams to score 10 or fewer points in Week 2 before Monday Night Football. Heck, the Panthers and Bills game finished 93. Unfortunately, there were also some notable injuries. Panthers tight end Greg Olsen broke his foot and is out indefinitely. Ravens guard Marshall Yanda fractured his ankle and is out for the season. Broncos left tackle Garrett Bowles suffered an ankle injury, and the team fears it may be broken, according to Adam Schefter of ESPN. Beyond that, we saw Patriots tight end Rob Gronkowski, Packers wide receivers Randall Cobb and Jordy Nelson, and Redskins running back Rob Kelly all leave games early with various injuries, among others. There are now 8 teams that are 0-2, basically a death sentence. Carson Palmer's struggles continued in Week 2, and well start there in our grades. Rusty Franklin Associated Press Week 2 opponent at Indianapolis Colts score 116-13. No matter the final score, this game was brutal. Outside of J.J. Nelson's performance of 120 yards and a touchdown on 5 catches, there was little to be excited about if you're a Cardinals fan. Carson Palmer doesn't look right. He had a few good throws, especially the touchdown to Nelson in double coverage, but other than that, he looks like HES approaching the end of the line. Without running back David Johnson, this offense is going to struggle. Thankfully, they have safety Tyrann Mathieu. His interception in overtime eventually led to a game-winning field goal. With no real backup behind Palmer, this could be a long season in Arizona. Week 2 Grade D Season Average Grade D Kevin C. Cox Getty Images Week 2 Opponent vs. Green Bay Packers score 1,3423 after a close call in Week 1 against the Bears. The Falcons opened up their new stadium in ideal fashion. Anytime you can intercept Aaron Rodgers and force a fumble and recover it for a touchdown, you're in business. The Packers lost key playmakers in wide receiver Jordy Nelson and defensive lineman Mike Daniels early on, but the offense was almost unstoppable. This mainly applies to running back Devonta Freeman, who scored twice, and wide receiver Julio Jones, who created mismatch problems all game. The defense hit Rodgers hard on a few occasions, 3 sacks and 6 quarterback hits. Heading into the season, there was talk that the Falcons' offense was so great in 2016 because of now 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan, but that wasn't an issue here. Week 2 Grade A Season Average Grade A Gale Burton Associated Press Week 2 Opponent vs. Cleveland Browns score 1,2410. The Ravens' defense came up big for the second week in a row, forcing 5 Browns turnovers, 3 interceptions from DeShone Kizer, 1 from backup Kevin Hogan, 1 from a fumble by Kizer. Some bad news, though. Guard Marshall Yanda is out for the season with an ankle injury. That is a huge loss. Between the Ravens' defense and their productive running game, 130 yards from running backs, the solid passing game from Joe Flacco put this game out of reach. Another fantastic performance by the Ravens in Week 2, albeit against another not-so-good team. Week 2 Grade A Season Average Grade A Bob Leveroni Associated Press Week 2 Opponent at Carolina Panthers score loss 93. If you were at this game live, I'm sorry. We knew the Bills' offense was going to be inconsistent, though if not for a drop on the final play of the game by rookie Zay Jones on what would have been a tough catch, the Bills would have won. They managed just 176 yards of total offense, and LeSean McCoy had more rushing attempts, 12 and yardage 9. The defense turned in a great performance, sacking Cam Newton 6 times. This could be the case all season for the Bills. No offense, but a solid defense. Week 2 Grade C Season Average Grade B Mike McCann Associated Press Week 2 Opponent vs. Buffalo Bills score 193. The Panthers should consider themselves lucky. They could have just as easily lost this game against a Bills team that is not supposed to be as good as them. Rookie Christian McCaffrey had 12 touches for 44 yards, with 34 coming via the pass. The team also lost Greg Olsen to a broken foot, and it was obvious this impacted the offense. The defense did its job, holding the Bills to under 200 total yards of offense. Overall, the Panthers performed well on defense in this one, but the offense couldn't get anything going and will need to adjust without Olsen. Week 2 Grade B Season Average Grade B Chris O'Meara Associated Press Week 1 Opponent at Tampa Bay Buccaneers score lost 297. The Bears had 4 turnovers, with 3 coming from Mike Glennon, including a pick-six. This game was dead and gone quickly. A few of the Bears' skill position players did manage to put up some solid garbage time numbers. Going up against the Steelers in Week 3, we could potentially be moving closer to the Mitchell Trubisky era in Chicago if Glennon's struggles continue. Week 2 Grade D Season Average Grade C Gary Landis Associated Press Week 2 Opponent vs. Houston Texans. Score lost 139 between errant throws and not getting wide receiver A.J. Green the ball down the stretch. Andy Dalton put in another terrible performance. He finished with just over 200 yards passing. In fact, according to Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, there are some players on the team who want Dalton benched and to sign free agent quarterback Colin Kaepernick. Once again, the running game was non-existent between the trio of Joe Mixon, Giovanni Bernard and Jeremy Hill. 63 yards on 20 carries combined. The offensive line stinks, and the defense failed to tackle Deshaun Watson on his touchdown run. Two positives: wide receiver Alex Erickson played well on special teams, 133 total return yards, and defensive tackle Geno Atkins deserves better. He played a great game, coming up with 2 sacks. And oh yeah, rookie wide receiver John Ross, welcome to the NFL. He had a single rush of 12 yards. But it was a fumble. Week 2 Grade F Season Average Grade F Gail Burton Associated Press Week 2 Opponent at Baltimore Ravens. Score lost 2,410 from the word go. The Browns were overmatched. Rookie quarterback DeShone Kizer did start and finish this game, but he was out for a while due to a migraine. Between Kizer and backup Kevin Hogan, the Browns turned the ball over 5 times, were sacked 3 times and were hit 10 times. While the Browns did get beat up in this game, they got some solid performances from tight end David Njoku. 3 receptions, 27 yards, 1 touchdown, and wide receiver Rashard Higgins 7 receptions, 95 yards. This wasn't a failing performance, but it's one to forget. Week 2 Grade D Season Average Grade C Justin Edmonds Getty Images Week 2 Opponent at Denver Broncos. Score lost 4,217 Playing in Denver is hard. Still, the Cowboys were astonishingly bad in this one. The particulars: 1 first down on the ground, 21% on third down, 2 interceptions and a pick six, 8 penalties, 8 yards rushing from Ezekiel Elliott. There's no chance in hell of winning. The offensive line is magnificent despite Elliott's performance, but the porous defense is starting to show. How will it fare against high-powered passing attacks? Outside of defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence's 2 sacks and wide receiver Dez Bryant's touchdown catch when they still had a chance, the Cowboys were not in the same league as the Broncos. Week 2 Grade D Season Average Grade C Justin Edmonds Getty Images Week 2 Opponent vs. Dallas Cowboys. Score 4,217 The Broncos took the Cowboys to school. They got 4 touchdown passes, 2 to Emmanuel Sanders out of Trevor Siemian, 118 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 1 receiving from C.J. Anderson, a pick 6 from cornerback Aqib Talib and 2 sacks from linebacker Von Miller. If we're nitpicking, Siemian did have an interception, and they did commit 8 penalties. Besides that, this game was out of hand in the second half. As long as Siemian doesn't put the team in bad positions, the Broncos and their defense could make significant noise this season. Week 2 Grade A Season Average Grade Eric Ozentowski Associated Press Week 2 Opponent at New York Giants. Score loss going up against a Giants defense that was without cornerback Janoris Jenkins and linebacker B.J. Goodson. The Detroit Lions offense already had a leg up. And if proved to be true on the field, Matthew Stafford found Marvin Jones deep in one-on-one coverage for a touchdown, and Giants safety Darian Thompson just played terrible coverage against Eric Ebron for another score. For the Lions defense, also known as Ziggy Ansah, they were all over Eli Manning in this one. The Giants offensive line is terrible, especially left tackle Eric Flowers. It's almost impressive how bad they are. Props to the special teams. 2 Matt Prater kicked a 56-yarder and Jamal Agnew returned a punt for 88 yards. This was a nice win for the Lions, but without a running game for the billionth straight game, the Lions are going to have trouble against better teams. And no, don't let one long run from Amir Abdullah fool you. Week 2 Grade B Season Average Grade B Kevin Seacox Getty Images Week 2 Opponent at Atlanta Falcons. Score lost 3,423 with backup offensive tackles, wide receiver Jordy Nelson and defensive lineman Mike Daniels leaving early and wide receiver Randall Cobb leaving a bit later on. The Packers were fighting an uphill battle. Add that to the fact the Falcons' offense is explosive, and it doesn't bode well. Aaron Rodgers is great, but when your defense cannot stop anything, what are you supposed to do? Though he did have an interception and a fumble, he did throw for 343 yards and 2 scores, but it's not good enough. Thankfully, Rodgers still had wide receiver Davante Adams and running back Ty Montgomery, which allowed for this game to be a little bit closer than it felt. This defense is going to have a hard time once again this season against teams with capable passing attacks and defensive lines. Week 2 Grade C season average grade Brelandis Associated Press Week 2 opponent at Cincinnati Bengals score 139. Although the Texans won this game, there was once again nothing overly exciting about this performance. Deshaun Watson broke off a long run for over 40 yards and a touchdown, which turned out to be the deciding factor. Other than that, he turned in the type of performance you'd expect from a rookie in his first start. Not great. Some positives: Watson's legs allow for extra playmaking. Rookie D'Onta Foreman ran well. Defensive back Kareem Jackson played a hell of a game, and Watson threw the ball to his best weapon, wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, when he needed to, unlike the Bengals and wide receiver A.J. Green. Until this offensive line can improve and players on defense like J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney and Whitney Mercilus can get going, the Texans will be anemic. Watson cannot do this alone. Week 2 Grade D season average grade F Michael Conroy Associated Press Week 2 opponent versus Arizona Cardinals score lost 16-13. The fact the Colts almost won this game with a quarterback who wasn't even on the team a few weeks ago speaks volumes. No, the Colts aren't any good. In fact, they're terrible. But so are the Cardinals. Before his interception in overtime, Jacoby Brissett looked like a quarterback who wouldn't lose a game for you despite not being ready for the big stage. Brissett leaned heavily on tight end Jack Doyle 8 receptions and veteran running back Frank Gore 46 rushing yards and a touchdown. The defense wasn't awful. It had 4 sacks and an interception that made Carson Palmer look like he was lost. Andrew Luck can only do so much when he gets back. If the team around him continues to falter, he needs to request a trade. Week 2 Grade C season average grade D Phelan M. Ebenhack Associated Press Week 2 opponent versus Tennessee Titans score lost 3,716 knots. The breaking news: Blake Bortles isn't any good. He threw 2 more interceptions and fumbled. If not for 2 late touchdowns, one passing to Allen Hurns and a short yard run by Leonard Fournette, the Jaguars had just 1 field goal. This offense without Allen Robinson could not move up the field, and the team also committed 10 penalties. It's remarkable a defense that appeared to be the second coming in Week 1 gave up almost a 40 spot. This was about as close to a failing performance as a group can get. When will this team pull the plug on Bortles? Week 2 Grade D season average grade C Charlie Riedel Associated Press Week 2 opponent versus Philadelphia Eagles score 2,720. While the game started slowly, the Chiefs managed to pull it out. After a stunning performance in Week 1, quarterback Alex Smith still had a solid game, completing 21 of 28 passes for over 250 yards, a touchdown. The defense and running back Kareem Hunt made the difference. Defensive maven Justin Houston was all over the place. He had 5 tackles and deflected a pass that was intercepted. Smith was harassed most of the day, so it wasn't a perfect game, but there is something to be said about how they finished this one off. The Patrick Mahomes era will remain on hold. Week 2 Grade B season average grader Harry Howe Getty Image Week 2 opponent versus Washington Redskins score lost 2,720. Through the first 2 games of the season, the Rams look like a solid football team. Jared Goff wasn't anything to brag about, but he looked like he belonged despite an interception late in the game. We witnessed a resurgence from running back Todd Gurley, minus his fumbles. He caught 3 balls for 48 yards and a touchdown and added 88 yards on the ground with a touchdown. We were also introduced to one of Goff's newest toys in rookie tight end Gerald Everett after he caught 3 passes for 95 yards. The defense could have been better. It allowed 27 points and too many big plays. That said, the Rams are trending upward with this young offense. Week 2 Grade C season average grade B Kevok Jansazian Getty Image Week 2 opponent versus Miami Dolphins score lost 19-17. How is it that seemingly every Chargers game is the same? It always comes down to a field goal, and it seems like they lose more than they win. Philip Rivers completed 31 of 39 passes in Week 2. That's pretty darn good. Unfortunately for Rivers, the running game was non-existent outside of a short touchdown from Melvin Gordon. In fact, 26 of the 44 yards on the ground came from one Brandon Oliver run. The Chargers' defense did all it could in this one, but kicker Younghoe Koo missed 2 big field goals. Of note, Antonio Gates broke the record for the most touchdowns by a tight end in a career. He's up to 112. Week 2 Grade B season average Grade B Sean M. Haffey Getty Images Week 2 opponent at Los Angeles Chargers score 1 1917 Jay Cutler WASNT elite or anything, but he was solid and didn't turn the ball over. He targeted wide receiver Jarvis Landry a team-high 15 times, connecting on 13 of them. Landry was the target machine, but fellow wide receiver Devante Parker made the big plays. In typical fashion, running back Jay Ajayi went over 120 yards on 28 carries. This was a well-rounded performance from the Fish, but this was also a game they should have lost if not for poor kicking by the Chargers. Still, perhaps the Cutler experiment may go a bit better than expected. Week 2 Grade B season average Grade B Keith Srakochi Associated Press Week 2 opponent at Pittsburgh Steelers score lost 269. This is a tough game to grade, as the Vikings were without starting quarterback Sam Bradford. As a result, they were forced to go with Case Keenum. This was an expected loss. It's not a surprise the passing game was mediocre. The running game did what it could, but it wasn't an incredible performance. Granted, the defense did give up 26 points, but the Steelers' offense is something to be reckoned with. In a vacuum, this performance wasn't great, but let's keep in mind who was at quarterback. Week 2 Grade C season average Grade B Bill Fay Associated Press Week 2 opponent at New Orleans Saints score 1 3620 after getting embarrassed in Week 1 by the Chiefs. The Patriots rebounded in a huge way. Tom Brady had a big game, going 30 of 39 for 447 yards and 3 TDs. Unfortunately, tight end Rob Gronkowski left the game due to a groin injury. There's not a lot of bad things to say about the Patriots in this one. Yeah, they gave up 20, but they were facing the Saints and Drew Brees. That was expected. Week 2 Grade A season average Grade B Butch Dill Associated Press Week 2 opponent versus New England Patriots score lost 3,620. Playing the Patriots is never a fun time. However, the Saints' defense is awful. Having the mindset that Brees will lead you to victory is a bad idea. At 38, he's getting to the age where you cannot rely on that much longer, especially with almost no running game. Adrian Peterson looks spent. Throughout the season, the Saints' grades are going to suffer because of their defense. It makes you wonder if they should try to dangle Brees on the trade market if this continues. It's unlikely that happens, but something needs to change. Week 2 Grade C season average Grade C Joey Robbins Getty Images Week 2 opponent versus Detroit Lions score lost. The play of the New York Giants offensive line should be considered a federal crime. My goodness. It's understood that Eli Manning isn't exactly elite anymore and can hold the ball for a bit too long, but this guy is on the ground all the time. Odell Beckham Jr. barely played in this game. When he did, he didn't do a whole lot. The Giants do not have a deep, downfield threat, they don't have a running game, and Brandon Marshall is essentially in a witness protection program, not to mention his heinous drop. There was some hope that the Giants would have a running game in 2017. Well, nope, they don't. Not only is the offensive line just bad, but the running back depth isn't that great, either. The Giants really felt the losses of Janoris Jenkins and BJ Goodson in this one. Some other players like Jason Pierre-Paul played well. On the flip side, Eli Apple struggled in coverage. Evan Ingram offered a glimmer of hope on offense, but this is setting up to be a painful season for the G-men if their offensive line woes continue. Week 2 Grade D season average Grade Desra Shaw Getty Images Week 2 opponent at Oakland Raiders score lost 4,520 for the Jets. It's usually going to be a question of how much they will lose by. The other question is if and will see second-year quarterback Christian Hackenberg. Against a great offense like the Raiders, the Jets were in trouble from the word go. Being behind for the majority of the game, the Jets were able to get some cheap scores and put up a 20 spot. Let's give them one positive, though the rushing attack averaged 5 yards per carry. Other than that, when you turn the ball over twice, have 0 sacks, give up 45 points under the Jets, you're a toast. Week 2 Grade D Season Average Grade Des Russell Getty Image Week 2 Opponent vs. New York Jets. Score 1 4,520. Essentially on a bye week, the Raiders were likely hoping to just avoid injuries between Derek Carr's 3 scores, all of which going to Michael Crabtree, and the 3 rushing touchdowns from Jalen Richard, Marshawn Lynch and Cordarrelle Patterson, the Raiders were off to the races. The defense also added 4 sacks. Turnovers plus Jets penalties allowed the Raiders to get away with some sloppiness in this one. Week 2 Grade A Season Average Grade A Zerga Associated Press. Week 2 Opponent at Kansas City Chiefs. Score lost 2,720, losing by a touchdown. The Eagles still played a solid game. Despite some poor play from left guard Isaac Seumalo, Carson Wentz had an okay day, but he did struggle against the Chiefs' defense and got lucky on a play that involved a ball bouncing off of Chiefs cornerback Terrence Mitchell and landing in Zach's arms. His main target was wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey. 7 receptions, 92 yards, 1 touchdown. Considering the Eagles had no rushing attack, the passing game needed to be perfect. It wasn't quite there. In addition to the Ertz play, Wentz could have had a few turnovers. He could not complete passes when pressured. With all that said, a tipped pass from Wentz and a rare fumble by Darren Sproles assisted in making the difference. If the Eagles can find a consistent rushing attack, they could be a threat in the NFC East. Week 2 Grade C Season Average Grade C Don Wright Associated Press. Week 2 Opponent vs. Minnesota Vikings. Score 1 269. It's no surprise the Steelers beat a Vikings team that was headed by a jobber like Case Keenum. Ben Roethlisberger played a solid game at home, connecting with Martavis Bryant and Juju Smith-Schuster for touchdowns. If you're wondering about wide receiver Antonio Brown and running back Le'Veon Bell, Brown was fairly quiet, 5 receptions, 62 yards, and Bell was inefficient, 87 rushing yards on 27 carries. The Steelers' offense isn't fully awake yet, but hey, a win is a win. Week 2 Grade B Season Average Grade Boto Gruel Jr. Getty Image. Week 2 Opponent at Seattle Seahawks. Score lost 129. The 49er Seahawks game was awesome, said no one ever. In a snoozer-fest, the almighty Seahawks narrowly escaped the clutches of the dreaded 49ers. If not for Carlos Hyde, the 49ers would not have been able to move the ball. He ran for 124 yards on just 15 carries. Brian Hoyer fell 1 yard shy of the 100-yard passing mark and threw an interception. The defense was able to hold the Seahawks to 12 and managed 3 sacks, but my goodness, do the Seahawks look bad or what? It's the 49ers. We didn't expect them to win. Hell, they were 2 touchdown dogs in this game, and they almost won if not for a drop by Marquise Goodwin. Considering they were such huge underdogs, this wasn't all that bad. Week 2 Grade C Season Average Grade Kotu Gruel Jr. Getty Image. Week 2 Opponent vs. San Francisco 49ers. Score 1 129. The Seahawks' offensive line looks like 5 traffic cones on the side of the road. It's impressive how bad they are. Russell Wilson couldn't get anything going until late when he threw a touchdown to Paul Richardson. The Seahawks defense is fine, but this offense needs some looking into. As a 2-touchdown favorite, this was a letdown. Committing 9 penalties didn't help, either. Week 2 Grade C Season Average Grade C Chris O'Meara Associated Press. Week 2 Opponent vs. Chicago Bears. Score 1 297. Following a Week 1 bye due to Hurricane Irma, the Buccaneers looked well-rested in their domination of the Bears. Jameis Winston and the running game didn't need to do a whole lot in this one. The defense led the way with 2 interceptions, 1 pick-six, and 2 fumble recoveries. Winston and Mike Evans connected on a beautiful touchdown, while running back Jacquizz Rodgers also scored. Some of his throws are scary, but you have to admire Winston's gunslinger mentality. The Buccaneers appear to be the real deal. Week 2 Grade A Season Average Grade A John Rowe Associated Press. Week 2 Opponent at Jacksonville Jaguars. Score 1 3716. After a slow first half, the Titans took off in the second, scoring 31 of their 37 points. While Marcus Mariota contributed a passing touchdown, this was not one of his better outings. 2 pleasant surprises: Derrick Henry had 92 yards rushing on 14 carries and found the end zone, while tight end Delanie Walker scored a rushing touchdown of his own. Speaking of Henry, the guy who is supposed to be above him on the depth chart, DeMarco Murray, was once again under 4 yards per carry, maybe some changing of the guard. causing 3 turnovers. The Titans' defense outplayed a Jaguars' defense that appeared to be legit just a week ago. Week 2 Grade B season average Grade B Jeff Grosskreutz Image Week 2 opponent at Los Angeles Rams score 1,720 thanks in large part to some big plays from running back Chris Thompson, a 13-minute time of possession advantage and a clutch interception from linebacker Mason Foster. The Redskins managed to pull off a victory late in the game. Kirk Cousins was similar to his counterpart Jared Goff in this one. He was okay, though he did manage to lead a game-winning drive. Along with Thompson, Cousins also had some help from another running back, Rob Kelley, who rushed for 78 yards on 12 carries. Moving forward, the Redskins need to improve on their third down conversions, 5 of 13 this game. Week 2 Grade C season average Grade C.